Sir Ramakrishna Reddy here with us to give a talk on a very important subject that is becoming an increasing concern of our times, growing threats to democracy. A Kentucky to do his PhD. Most of you might remember university where he remained for a very long time. In Utah for almost 40
55.
Oh my God, 55 years. So it's the Dixon Award which the university gives. And also the Outstanding Social Scientist of the Year, which also the university had given him. So one of the books that I remember is a role of India in the UN. Yeah? So Thomas Jefferson so eloquently put it is that governments are instituted among men to secure individual liberties and their just powers from the consent of the governed. This particular aspect has been lost.
And thank you for inviting me. It's I see so many eminent persons, not only in Mysore, but across the continent. So many of you going on in mostly democracies in Europe, in America, in Asia. It's and so what essentially we assume, we think democracy is simply ruled by the people. People are the sovereign. We, the government, to govern us. But the government has a responsibility to us. They are not our masters, the people in power. They are public servants. Their responsibility is to provide service to the people who are the masters of the nation. So it's and in some cases the people, once they come to power, they usurp the power and they forget that the people are to be ruled. That's the negation of democracy. And democracy has several forms and shapes. We have American democracy, then there is the British parliamentary democracy, the French democracy, and we have our own democracy in India. But essentially, what are the prime ingredients of democracy? And as I said, that one of them is basic civil liberties. The country that started here are in Britain, that's a national assembly in France. So these representatives of the people enact the laws, and the responsibility of the administrators is to implement these laws. And as a matter of fact, in the American Constitution, very little said about the powers of the president. They did not want the president to wield too much power. They gave the power to the Congress, to the representative body of the people. So, in the American Constitution, Article 1 refers to Congress. What are the powers of Congress? If you read them in 10 words, the powers of the president are to execute the laws enacted by Congress. So, he is more like a clerk, agent to carry out the laws enacted by finally arbitrate the disputes between the president and Congress or between the people and the government. So the judiciary has a function, and protecting the independence of the judiciary is very important. America again is the media. Once the media is suppressed, censored, then people lose the information that they need to democracy. It's and how this democracy is being challenged by autocracy, and this is a global scenario. It's not in any one country or any one continent. And what is going on? Going by history, it's always the pattern that these autocrats have at times the upper hand, but it's not permanent. So they do. And when Julius Caesar was assassinated, Cicero was an old man. He was sitting there, and then Brutus, Cassius, and others, they said, "Oh, Cicero, you will be good. to be the first president of the republic. We put an end to the autocrat, Julius Caesar. They assassinated him in the Senate. And then they asked Cicero to be the head of the republic. And Cicero then was hunted and he tried to flee Italy, could not do so. He could not get the access to the ship. And then he was hunted by two people, Mark Antony and Mussolini, the Italian, it's a fascist, was successful in establishing a dictatorship, and then is facing serious threats to its democracy in the 1920s. Weimar democracy into a Nazi dictatorship. Some of you who are familiar with German history period put an end to democracy in Spain. That was done by Franco, the Spanish dictatorship. It's in Tunisia. Similar things happen. So these are also the autocratic leaders tend to be strong-willed. They have, the Philippines and Bolsonaro in Brazil. And he's still in power. Orban in Hungary. And established what Farid Zakaria called illiberal democracies. It's in recent years, and it's still going on in the case of, as I said, Hungary. So these autocrats also, they have hypnotic appeal to the masses. Being behind, Göring, Hitler's lieutenant. So then, you hear it time and again for 100 years or more. And then they attack democracy's inability. We are witnessing that today or in the recent past. And the question of immigrants. The whites are immigrated to America too. So the immigrants, they mean the non-whites. Whites or non-whites, but they are all immigrants. So it's like the university in Yale University in America was built by an Englishman who looted India, took the money from here, and he established the major university in America. So he was an immigrant. So it's but blaming immigrants is easy. It's the autocrats also excel in propaganda. And they promise everything. Okay, autocrat. What is the difference? So it's the autocrat doesn't respect the rules, and he rules arbitrarily. But in the Hitler case, you get a puppet parliament to pass the law, and then you implement the law. Xenophobic themes like Hitler's Germany's as the master race, and then make the people believe in them, that poisoning the blood. So the Jewish people were poisoning the blood of the pure Aryans in Germany, and in the blood of the pure race. I don't want to mention the names here. The mandate from the voters. Some even go to the extent of claiming heavenly mandate from heaven. The Libyan leader pronounced that Allah sent him to liberate the Libyan people. Oh, he liberated them, all right. Rallies. Again, if you have seen this trend or not, he took the rallies. So did other dictators, rallies. So it's they muzzle the media. It's all in the name of making the nation great. Okay, so people with criminal records, like Göring was a criminal, Hitler employing him. So these criminals are better for the dictator to impose his authority over the masses. Just the minorities are going to be a majority. So it's so that we should not allow this minority to flourish, or we should expel them. So it's and he's everything. So it's they corrupt public officials. See, they know all the tricks of the trade, but it's somewhere in the kind of air. Amorality is an inherent characteristic of authoritarian leaders. Berlusconi, this is a character who ruled Italy for a while as prime minister for several terms. Berlusconi of Britain. Berlusconi, the Italian prime minister, reported to have said that Mussolini never killed anyone and do not cooperate by refusing to reveal their sources. The authoritarian leaders physically and verbally intimidate them by several ways. I think once you submit to organ, it leads to greater coercion. Like say, even not only subordinates, say the media and the judiciary, or the election commission, they are autonomous, but they relinquish their power of bad. It's a fantastic book. The bad, ultimately emerges. So that's the conclusion of the book. It's a great book. What can be done in a time when there are these challenges posed to democracy by autocracy? We should not take democracy for granted. We have in the system maintain their solidarity. So it's, solidarity is communications or whatever, organ. And the hope for democracy is it's not all that bad. Democracies have reinvented before, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Britain to function under democratic systems. It's going the other way, but democracy has not completely collapsed. Have evolved from centuries of dictatorial rule to functioning democracies in the last 35 years. Elections provide opportunities to preserve democracy. The best case I can give is, Pinochet was still alive. He was not dead. He died after Chile became democratic. Reasserted its democracy after Bolsonaro. So it's the Philippines. It's not a gun case. It's a functioning democracy after Duterte's rule. Another excellent example is South Korea. After General Park, just faced some challenges to its democracy, but now it's a stronger democracy than it was 2 years ago. It's sad, I think, although media has its own, the threats by the government, but there are people who are strong, who have the courage, and who are willing to, stand up to these autocrats. So this independent media will sustain a book called "Strength in What Remains." He was so it's belonged to the Tutsi tribe, and vanity, and that's a big problem with these dictators. We are all them out. And one final remark, I don't know whether it makes much sense or not, that these autocrats in large, maybe have exceptions, they do not have a very high opinion of the people.
Because the left has ceased to exist in most of the democracies. Opposition to the right is the centrist forces. And the centrist coalition is always an unstable coalition. Have we reached a position where the right will remain the most potential force in the world today?
Universal. Only because you are left, it does not necessarily just show that you are for democracy. So it's that's my thinking.
Having said that, what I find is missing in your talk is that the state has accumulated, concentrated to itself a lot of power,
Right.
So people's institutions, democratic institutions. Unfortunately, because of modern, that is very important. That is, if there is an exceptional case, of say terrorism, in the name of terrorism, you make laws which are correct. What?
They are correct. But
today own the media. And that is why Steve Bannon said that the problem is not the Democrats, the problem is the media. And and in fact, he used the word, we'll give them shit. Does democracy revive, or can democracy at all revive, particularly because the ruling parameters today is there is a shift in the economic global, primarily because of what President Trump has started off. There are going to be a lot of shifts. And the third is the galloping climate crisis.
This Pope Pius was, so the clergy is conservative again, that's true. But if they are in power, the clergy will also, just keep going. It is conservative by nature, and the police conservative by nature. It's not like they loved Hitler.
Any election
In US.
I have a problem. ಈಗ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ I am 3 decades old as a scientist engineer in ISRO, where the space technology is giving a lot of enabling. Community enabling activities ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, whether it's for climate change or any of these aberrations of autocracy, dictatorship, whatever it happens. With sufficient knowledge, we are not validating for the present time our knowledge. This is my problem. Enlightenment amongst all of us. ನಾವು ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಜ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಎನೇಬಲಿಂಗ್ ನಾವು ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾ?
Democracy globally is declining, is in recess, is under malaise, retreat, recession globally. Do you think mainly because elections are vital to democracy, which are the costliest exercises? But legitimacy of democracy itself is being eroded. And you see, democracy is a god, is shaky because, is it shaky because of its alliance with the dark financing, and how to overcome it?
The will to adhere to certain norms, so nobody tells us you should speak the truth. But we should believe that speaking truth is the right thing.
Whether it is in America or in India, they influence the leadership. To them, their agenda is only profit.
Right.
Now, for example, the pharmaceutical industry have to have a war going on somewhere or the other. Now, once
state as business interest, the states themselves, US as a as a state with US science and things like that, is acting as a deep state in sabotaging the democracies around the world for their own interest.
What is the solution ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ people become aware ಅಂತ.
Right.
But how that kind of wisdom, education ಮುಂದೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಂಗೆ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Business community and the enterprise system, because they have accepted the development in terms of big enterprises coming up and increasing the GDP. After the liberalization, globalization and privatization, the whole world accepted liberalization as the ultimate of development. So it's have to come and dominate. In India, Ambani openly said in a meeting, when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi should become the making that party to become the state. And my friend said about armaments and pharmaceuticals. Under the GATT agreement, IPR was technology and capital came into the country to facilitate my program of missiles. Trump is business. Trump is that man is business. In America, as you said, Mr. Reddy, public contributions are allowed. Professionals And in the common man, the poor fellow takes some 2,000 votes.
No.
Educated, dominate, the enemy of democracy.
No.
The people, interest of the people. But what is it today? It is the interest of the moneyed and demand them. But this is a major question, how to save democracy, make it, see, instead of election and money centered, it has to be constitution centered, where check and balance, liberty, equality, fraternity have to be promoted. Government serve the money, not the people. And therefore, that's why you have been talking of what alternative. Sir, I have, alternative is one who pays the piper calls the tune. Who is paying for our democracy? Election campaign. Reduce the cost of party politics. It is possible. Pay for it. No money, no private person should be allowed to pay.